Hello and welcome, I am HenryPlays and this is my review of Neon Abyss. This video is going to be part of a new series called Games Pass Reviews, where I'll find new games on the Xbox and PC Games Pass and review them to see if it's a game that suits you. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to subscribe so that you do not miss out on any future videos. This video is also going to be a little different to my other ones. I'm going to try and run through the description of the game as fast as possible so that you can get to the review section faster. Tell me if you prefer this method or the other method down below in the comments. On the screen right now you'll see the different timestamps for the different sections of the video. We'll start with a description, then go through the review, and then finally come to a conclusion. Thank you very much for watching and let's get to it. Neon Abyss is a roguelike action platformer where you will find yourself traversing procedurally generated levels, taking down monsters and gods along the way. The story is barely mentioned, something about evil new gods that have overthrown the pantheon or killed your family or something like that. Yeah, somewhere along those lines. Hades talks you into entering the Abyss, which is a string of dungeons that are below a nightclub, because that's where the new gods and their minions can be found. There isn't really much talk of the story after that, but you didn't come to this game for a story, you came for a shoot 'em up platformer, which is exactly what this game is. You can shoot wherever and whatever you want, as you are only limited by your bullet range and the walls along the outside of the level. The 360-degree shooting circle is ideal for shooting enemies above and below the platform that you are on. The idea of the game is to go through each level, killing all the enemies and slaying the final boss so that you can proceed to the next level and do the same thing, until you get to the manager. Along the way, you'll find small items like power-ups, bombs, keys and coins, along with the weird egg things that follow you around. Some of the power-ups provide small boosts to stats like damage, bullet range and movement speed, whereas others can provide unique twists like bullets that explode, or even being able to use keys as grenades. These power-ups are scattered all over the levels so that people who complete every room before moving on have an advantage over the people that do not. So if there's any real Tomb Raiders out there, this game's got your back. At the end of every level, you're greeted by a boss. The early bosses are relatively easy and their attacks are somewhat avoidable. Avoidable. There we go. And I won't spoil the story for you in case you are actually going to play it for yourself. I'm going to start off with some disclaimers, for lack of a better word. I personally am not really that much of a platform player. As I said in my trailer, I mostly play competitive games and some different games to relax. However, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I actually enjoyed this game. This game is a fantastic game for non-platformer gamers to try, whether they just want to dip their toe in the genre or start playing games like this more often. For me anyway, this game was a perfect introduction to the platformer world. The game also shows off their ability to procedurally generate levels by balancing the level design along with the number of enemies there are. I did used to play platformers a very long time ago, and the main problem that I found with the ones that were procedurally generating was that there were usually way too many or way too few enemies for a particular situation. Like, you'd enter a new room and the room would be tiny but filled with hundreds of enemies, or the opposite, you'd enter a massive room with only one small enemy in the middle. But the good news is that this game doesn't really seem to suffer from that problem, and this feature makes the combat actively enjoyable. In a game like this, combat is literally everything. Combat and movement. If you don't have those two nailed down, your game is just not going to be enjoyable. My final positive point about this game is the way that it's paced. The action part of the game is relatively fast paced with periods of downtime in between. Once you're done with an action sequence, the game will let you know by reopening the exits of the room to let you leave or proceed to the next area. You can spend as long as you want in the rooms that either have no action or that you've already killed all the enemies in. So other than the time when you're actually killing the enemies, you can play the game at your own pace. If you want to spend hours in each room, you can do. If you want to fly through the entire game, you can do that as well. Just be prepared to die. A lot. However, the game is far from perfect. In a few different situations, I was struggling to perceive the different projectiles that were flying across the screen. By that, I mean I didn't really know whether the bullets that I was seeing were mine or an enemy's, which at the end of the day in a game like this, it can be the difference between staying alive and dying. When something like this happens towards the beginning of the game, it's not too much of a problem because you've only just started. But when you're multiple hours into the game, the enemies are getting harder and appearing more frequently. As I've already said, the action scenes in this game are very fast paced and it's increasingly difficult to figure out whether the projectiles that are near you are going to kill you or not. Something like this can completely ruin your experience on the game and maybe even your day. I wasn't multiple hours into the game, but I did die after about an hour and it kinda got to me quite a bit. This negative point goes hand in hand with the other one. In this game, you die. A lot. Now hold up a minute, I'm not just crying, right? It's not like a Dark Souls level of dying, but it's got its own level. When you die in this game, you lose all of your progress, so you could potentially sink hours into a playthrough and just die and lose it all. I know this might not be a problem for everyone, but when I sit down at a game that I've played before, especially if it's a story game, I expect to already be up to a certain point. But instead, with Neon Abyss, you have to start over every single time you die. And if you're like me, you get annoyed at dying a lot in games, you may rage quit when you die, meaning that when you come back to the game, there is absolutely zero progress. And yes, I did say the game is the perfect introduction to platformers, and I may be going back on myself now. But if you put the time into the game to build up your knowledge and muscle memory of the different AI moves, I'm sure you can work the imperfections to your advantage. But for me personally, I don't really want to. I came to try and find a platformer that wouldn't take me tens of hours to get used to, and one where I wouldn't lose all my progress when I die. If I was to play a platform game, I'd come to play it to relax, just to not have to think, whilst I'm running, jumping, shooting, but this game just isn't the game for that. Overall, I think the game is pretty good. The game definitely isn't for everyone, but if you already have the Xbox Games Pass, you don't lose anything from trying it. I really don't recommend this game to anybody who hates losing progress or losing everything when they die. But anybody who's used to playing platformers will see this game as a nice refreshing change from the status quo of the genre. The fast-paced action and the bright lights is enough to provide a thrilling experience for everyone to enjoy. But as soon as that death screen comes up, you'll find yourself cursing the developers for the permadeath nature of the game. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you all very much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe so that you do not miss any future related videos. Check out my other social medias down in the description and comment down below any questions or queries that you may have. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a great day. Ciao.